Sling and Things.
Sup, and welcome to a fresh new edition of Sling and Things, where today I'm discussing another of my favorite anime series. And like the previous anime show that I reviewed on here, Erased, it too was made by A1 Pictures and is deserving of your attention. Let's jump right into it, because I've actually been wanting to talk about this show for a while. Today I am reviewing Season 1 and 2 of Birdy the Mighty Decode, which were released in 2008 and 2009, and which is an adaptation of a manga from Masami Yuki. Birdy the Mighty Decode is a hidden treasure. It is one of the best anime shows I've ever seen, and yet it is relatively obscure. It's something that many diehard anime fans have probably never heard of. It was so under the radar, even when it came out, that Anime News Network, which was the biggest anime directory on the internet, didn't review either season of it, which always stuck with me because that was a site that reviewed like every anime that was even remotely prominent. Or how about this? Erased, the previous anime that I looked at on here, has, as of this recording, 21,927 reviews on IMDb. Birdy the Mighty Decode, which came out 8 years earlier, has, as of May 2020, 277 reviews. The show just slipped through the cracks. It became something you were allowed to not know about. And Funimation, the English company that dubbed it, eventually let the license for it expire. But just because it lacked mass appeal, that doesn't mean it isn't worth revisiting, or that it didn't deserve a better appraisal in the first place. The show, which has a bit of a wonky name, and is also known as Tetsuwan Birdy Decode, is about a Federation space officer named Birdy Cephon Altera, who one day accidentally kills a kid named Tsutomu when she's hunting down a criminal. But fortunately, through the magic of science, Birdy is able to upload Tsutomu's consciousness and likeness into her body, which allows the two of them to more or less take turns operating it, and when he's in control, her body looks like his. In other words, during the day, he gets to live out his ordinary life as a school student, and at night, they switch to Birdy being in control so that she can be a crime-fighting superwoman again. The premise is kind of like if Ranma 1/2 met a Space Cop series. And what's interesting is that this was not the first adaptation of the Birdy manga. In the 90s, there was an OVA that was released called Birdy the Mighty, and as you can see, the characters looked fairly different in it, and it was much more of a slapstick, gross-out action comedy. Decode has comedic elements in it, for sure, but it's much more gritty and grounded, which is to its benefit. One of the things that makes this show stand out is its world building, which is very meticulous. You can tell that the people who made Decode put a lot of time and effort into fleshing out the backstory. Because when the plot transitions to the planet that Birdy was born on, and you see all these scenes on an alien world, those scenes have a remarkable attention to detail to them. You get the sense, watching them, that a ton of care went into making this world feel lived in and populated, and that even the rudimentary aspects of it, like how people travel, or what they eat, or what they wear, or what the politics of the world are, were all accounted for, and it's very impressive. Another thing the show has going for it is its character development, which is really strong. The people that Birdy and Tsutomu run into on a daily basis are super relatable, and the way that they speak to each other is surprisingly realistic. For instance, one of Tsutomu's best friends is this girl called Hayamiya, and they have a very natural, platonic connection with each other that you frankly don't see that often in anime, which hasn't always done the best job of representing women. Hayamiya feels like a real person. She reminds me of people who I knew in high school, and the show somehow manages to devote attention to all of Tsutomu and Birdy's friends, and to give them all more depth, without devoting so much attention to them that it deviates from the story. The art style is very sleek and minimalistic, especially compared to the 90s OVA, but the animation comes alive whenever there's a fight scene, or whenever Birdy is running or leaping between buildings. And I get that this is hard to personify, but there's so much life and energy in the animation. You just know that the people who drew this really believed in this project and put everything they had into it. Case in point, the second intro for this show is maybe my favorite anime opening ever, and it's because of all the joy that you can see in it, that radiates from everyone's expressions. And also the song is really good. This is a show where everything about the production just clicks. The writing, the way it looks, the way it sounds. It has a very orchestral, cinematic score. It's all well done. Now, objectively, it is worth mentioning that the second season of Birdy the Mighty Decode is better than the first. Season 1 I would describe as pretty good, but there are moments where it's kind of slow and plodding, and where the pace could understandably be a bit of a speed bump for some people, because it's the setup season. Plus the villain in it is basically M. Night Shyamalan, which takes some getting used to. Season 2, though, is great. Like, it's not even one of those things where you're like, oh, well, this was a pleasant surprise. No, the second season is seriously fantastic, and it has really tight pacing, and parts of it are told out of order, and there are subplots that dovetail with each other, and it's dark and raw and surprisingly violent. Season 2 has some scenes in it that are very grisly, and you should be prepared for that if you watch this show. Season 1 has ominous overtones, but Season 2 is bloody, but in a way that's effective. So, after all the praise that I've been heaping on this show, you might be pondering, well, why didn't Birdy the Mighty Decode catch on as much as it should have? If the quality is so evident, how come there were only 2 seasons of it? How come it didn't do better? And I think the problem the show ran into was that its premise is different enough that it had trouble pinpointing an audience. Many of the attributes that I love about this show are attributes that don't often appear in anime series. And true enough, there are moments, particularly in the second season, where it comes off less like an anime and more like an action drama that just happens to be animated. And so while the show was very well done, it's understandable that anime fans, who often seek out anime in the first place because it's not as down-to-earth, may have balked at this, and may not have been as enamored with how natural the characters and parts of this world were. Plus, the fact that the first season is a bit slow compounds that. In other words, Decode is a bit of an acquired taste, which is something I am very familiar with, as someone who reviews things on YouTube while playing a Spider-Man game. I understand how tough it can be to get people on board with something when the concept is something they kind of have to push through or get used to. But if you watch the first season, and if you enjoy it, I think you'll really like the second. As far as the conclusion goes, Decode does not end definitively, and there are little sprinklings throughout the series of a much bigger conflict that we, unfortunately, don't get to see. It would have been great if there was a season 3, and who knows, maybe one day in the far distant future, some wonderful benefactor will improbably resuscitate the series. I mean, hell, we live in a world that produced multiple Paul Blart movies, so I never say never. But both seasons are self-contained enough that you won't feel cheated if you watch this. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger or anything. It just makes you wish there was more, which is the ultimate compliment in a way. And sadly, this show deviates pretty substantially from the manga and has a much different tone, so it's not like you can just read the manga to figure out how the rest of the show would have gone. But not everything gets to finish on its own terms. That's why you gotta treasure the few shows that do, because they're few and far between, and it's even fewer that get to end well. The last thing I will say about Birdy the Mighty Decode is that it falls into the rare category of entertainment that I genuinely want more people to know about. If you've watched the first 14 episodes of Sling and Things, and I hope you have, you should know by now that there really isn't a pattern for what I review on here. It basically comes down to whatever I feel like reviewing or discussing is what I review and discuss. And I'm usually not that invested in whether or not you check out the thing that I'm talking about, because I recognize that entertainment is subjective, and that just because I like something, that doesn't mean that you will. But Birdy the Mighty Decode is something I genuinely like advocating for, because it deserved more love than it got in its first run. If you're an older anime fan, and if you're in the market for a series that puts an emphasis on storytelling, like if you liked Erased, for instance, or if you liked Made in Abyss or Eureka 7, Birdy the Mighty Decode is on par with those shows. It is a diamond in the rough. And if you've been scouring the wasteland for more quality anime to watch because you've already seen all the major series, you should give this one a look. If it's not your thing, I get it. But if it is your thing, well, then my work is done.